It's interesting. She says she's not anti-vaccine. Her book has a foreword in it by Robert F. Kennedy, who's one of the leading anti-vax movement individuals.
Well, first of all, Dr. Mike, you conveniently cut off the last part of her statement where she said the reason why she's not an anti-vaxxer is because her job is to develop immune therapies. Therefore, she's not against vaccines. She's just against the vaccines that cause more harm than good. Just like a lot of anti-vaxxers, just like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And that little forewording in her book, he's just praising her for being able to have the courage and the gumption enough to go against the ones who are causing the harm. And furthermore, if vaccines were not causing harm and they weren't harmful to children or other people, why did we have to come up with the 1986 Childhood Act?
How can you be sure? There's so many virologists who have the same specialty as you that say that it could have easily come from a specific animal species and then jumped to humans. And then you're sure that it happened between these laboratories. I think even scientists should be comfortable with the unknown or the fact that they may be wrong.
First of all, she never said that it was lab created. She said that if a laboratory was involved, we cannot claim that this is natural. And then she named 2 labs that could be responsible for such an event if that's indeed what happened. And she named North Carolina Chapel Hill and Fort Detrick. And the reason why she named this is because we know that there are reports out that prove that Ralph S. Barrick of North Carolina Chapel Hill and Shizing Lee of the Wuhan laboratory came together and created a chimeric virus from the SARS bat coronavirus that they discovered. And not only that, but Fort Detrick also had their hand in remdesivir. So you do the math.
Hi, Senator Scott Jensen. I serve Minnesota and I represent Carver County. I'm a family physician and I'm in the trenches, if you will. Recently, I've been, if you will, accused of trying to drum up some sort of conspiracy theory because I've divulged some information that people weren't aware of. That's not who I am. So let's just step back a little bit. Let's just talk about some facts. And these are facts that a lot of times people don't understand about medical care. And I understand this is hard to talk about, but let's just jump into it. First, I want to talk about allocation. What is happening in regards to COVID-19 and allocation? Well, right now, the first chunk of money from the CARES Act, $2.2 trillion, the first chunk went out. And based on how Medicare dollars are normally distributed, New York City, New York State got a chunk of money, and so did Minnesota. If you divide that chunk of money New York got by the number of COVID-19 cases they have, they ended up getting about $12,000 per case. If you divide the Minnesota amount by the Minnesota COVID-19 cases, we end up getting not 12,000 but 300,000. So there's an inequity there, right? But what Medicare did was they allocated and distributed the dollars based on what they've done historically. And Minnesota typically gets about 1.7%, and New York probably gets about 3.5 times that based on population. What does that mean? Well, a few days later, we had both senators from New Jersey, one of the congressmen, come out and complain that that's not fair. That's not the way it should be done. They want the dollars to be distributed, especially the next chunk, which will be even bigger. They want it distributed based on the number of COVID-19 cases. Okay, that's an allocation. Here's another allocation. Hospital administrators. Hospital administrators might well want to see COVID-19 attached to a discharge summary or a death certificate. Why? Because if it's a straightforward garden variety pneumonia that a person is admitted to the hospital with, if they're on Medicare, typically the diagnosis related group lump sum payment will be about $5,000. But if it's COVID-19 pneumonia, then it's $13,000. And if that COVID-19 pneumonia patient ends up on a ventilator, it goes to $39,000. Now, I can demonstrate those facts to you, and I've been fact-checked, and I've sent it out to different news sources. I didn't make these things up. You can get these from Medicare. The bottom line, that's another allocation. Now, physicians have gotten their undies in a bundle, and they said, you calling me a liar? No, I'm not calling you a liar. But listen, physicians, the Hippocratic Oath talks about us keeping our art pure. You and I both know that we are oftentimes in a position where we suffer a moral injury. When we have to do something that we know isn't what we really want to do with the patient. If we make a patient wait 6 weeks to get an MRI and we know they're hurting and we know that they're going to need surgery and we know that this is just going to expand the amount of time they're going to use opiates, we feel bad. And yet sometimes we're we're hamstrung. The network, the insurance company, they won't let us do otherwise. The only way we can do it is if the patient pays cash, and they're not in that position. That's a moral injury, and that's what we do. So when someone says, I'm saying that physicians lie about the death certificate, no, I'm not. But it's just like if a hospital administrative type of person comes up to me when I've done a discharge summary, and they say, Dr. Jensen, we see this patient had congestive heart failure and emphysema, but you know what? We noticed that their sodium was also a little low. Yeah, but I never had to deal with it. Yeah, but it was low, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, the medical term for low sodium is hyponatremia. So the person will say, well, if you put hyponatremia down, because it was part of the equation, then the hospital will get paid a little bit more. That's why United Health Group was in court, was because with the Medicare Advantage group of people, they were having people go out looking through our charts in our office to see if there were any diagnoses that we hadn't included on some of our charge tickets that they hadn't gotten into their data bank. As soon as they get those other diagnoses into their data bank, they can go to the insurance payer or to Medicare and say, see, we deserve more money because we have a more complicated group of patients. What's happening there? We're seeing an expansion of what that patient's chart looks like, what their picture looks like. Why? Because if we can increase the index of severity of a patient, we get paid more. I was medical director of a nursing home for years. We constantly talked about in our meetings about the need to elevate the index of severity because then the nursing home gets paid more per day per patient. What does this mean? Well, I know this is offensive for you, but this is the way it works, and it's not necessarily right. But when last week New York State came out and said, we're going to bump up our death numbers for COVID-19 from 7,000 to 10,500 in one day because we've decided to take all the probables and list them right alongside all of the laboratory confirmed cases. That was a problem. Minnesota's not doing that. Commissioner Jan Malcolm has said, in Minnesota, we're counting the cases that are laboratory confirmed. So is California. So is Seattle. So when New York State says they're going to do it differently, that's a problem. Now we don't have apples and apples. Now we got apples and oranges. And you know what's going to happen? In a week or a month or whatever, New York's going to make the case that they should get more money because they have 10,500 deaths, not 7,000. Do I think there's undercounting of COVID deaths? Yeah, for sure. A state like ours, we're probably going to undercount because we don't have all these people that may have died of a COVID-19 related disease tested. So we might undercount. But New York, they sure could be overcounting. In terms of, are we undercounting on the cases? Without question. We're not testing enough. We know that the number of people that we have confirmed at laboratory tested COVID-19, we know it's way bigger than that. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to unleash the spirit of America. This is what we do. We want facts. We want information. I know there's a lot of keyboard warriors that just like to, if you will, troll and play gotcha games. That's one thing I've said over and over. Mind, body, spirit. When all we focus on is the body and the COVID-19 deaths, we're forgetting all the people that we're hurting in regards to their mental health, their emotional health, their suicides. And we're also forgetting about the severed supply chains. And we're talking about support structures for elderly that's been severed. They can't see their friends. They can't see their family. This is a big picture, and America needs to be engaged. Thank you.
Now, when Dr. Mike touched on the whole $13,000 and $39,000 thing for COVID-19 patients that the doctors are receiving, he pretty much repeated the same narrative that you just heard, while glossing over the fact that the reason why they may list COVID-19 on the death certificate for someone who may not have died from COVID-19 is because the hospital stands to make more money by listing other issues that the patient may have come in with. Then he goes on to say, well, hey, you may think that we are being a little misleading with the numbers by doing this, but it is what it is. But still, look at all of the deaths. Look at all of the people who've died from COVID-19. That's all that matters.
Toll. Now, whether or not you think this would create misinformation, that's your choice. But again, look at the amount of people that have died in comparison to the last 10 years. The numbers have skyrocketed, and it's simply because of this COVID outbreak.
Or something. Like, literally, some of these people are just on sedation to keep them on the vents. Nothing else. I have a lady on a trach on a vent, and she's not even fucking cognizant. She's not even on sedation. You know what we give her every day? I give her breathing treatments, albuterol, and she gets insulin. And that's it. That's it. We're not treating the COVID, guys. Like, for real, we're not treating the COVID. You know, every day we try and get these guys off the vents, right? because, there's criteria for weaning. Every day, the day shift nurse will wean them down, to minimum sedation. Every night, we come in and we get the same 2 residents, and they fucking max out all the sedation again and undo all the work from the day shift. Then the day shift attendant will come in and they'll all do rounds, and they'll be like, he wasn't synchronizing with the vent. So we had to turn all the sedation on. And I'm like, he wasn't synchronizing with the vent because it's in the wrong vent mode.
Which, by the way, I know a nurse in Florida who was fired for exposing that about CPAP and BiPAP and patients being put on the ventilator, straight away to the ventilator, to be on a closed system. The patients don't know any better. They don't have family with them. There is no one there with them to advocate for them. So they are scared and they give consent. The ventilators have high PEEP, high pressure, which then causes barotrauma. It causes trauma to the lungs. Dr. Siddell, Cameron Kyle Siddell, a few weeks ago put out a video. He's in New York City, and he put out a video saying something is not right, we're not treating this correctly. We're doing something wrong. This doesn't make sense. They pulled his video from YouTube and they took him out of ICU because they couldn't have one doctor going against the grain, going against their protocol.
Very short time.
When used improperly, ventilators can cause lung injury. This is a well-known phenomenon. However, when you have a new condition like COVID-19, which we've never seen before, we try and do our best and adapt to the situation as quickly as possible. Does that mean we're going to be perfect and we're not going to make mistakes and patients aren't going to suffer? Absolutely not. Whether you're an ICU doctor, a family medicine doctor, nephrologist, you have protocols that you're used to seeing. Patient comes in with condition X, treatment for that is Y, you need to order blood test A, B, and C to monitor their progress, and you follow these protocols that you've learned over your lifetime, and you know how to adapt. But with COVID-19, we're seeing really unique cases that we've just never seen described in medical literature before. So we're trying to learn very quickly, but in this process, unfortunately, patients have lost their lives. This is not because we're actively trying to harm our patients.
People are sick, but they don't have to stay sick. They are killing them. They are not helping them.
I know we're gonna have a shit ton of people die, but these people aren't dying from COVID. Let me give you several examples here. An anesthesiologist intubated the patients, I think it was right, bronchi and of a patient, and they couldn't get the sats up, and for about 5 hours, we were waiting on a chest x-ray to confirm that the placement was wrong. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, and we've told the anesthesiologist that it was placed wrong, because literally only one side of his fucking chest is inflating, he dies. Okay? A patient had a heart rate of 40, and the resident started doing chest compressions on him, which is not what you do. You just externally pace them, or you give him some atropine. And then, I run in there to stop him from doing chest compressions on somebody with a fucking pulse. And then he decides to push epi. He throws some pads on him to defibrillate the guy in bradycardia. Okay, he has a heart rate of 40 and a stable, bradycardic rhythm. We just need to give him some atropine and pace him. He fucking defibrillates him and kills him.
Why are we being pressured to add COVID to maybe increase the numbers and make it look a little bit worse than it is?
But of course, Dr. Mike says,
no one's being pressured. The CDC puts out recommendations of how you decide what someone has passed from. And you're free to follow those recommendations or not. This is simply because we're facing an unprecedented pandemic with a viral condition that is new to us.
I want to know.
it's not really that new though. After all, it is another coronavirus in the SARS coronavirus family, which we dealt with in 2003 and 2004. So we should kind of have an idea of certain ways that we could possibly deal with something like this, even if it is a little bit more virulent than the 2003 SARS outbreak. Like for prime example, maybe using hydroxychloroquine. After the SARS outbreak of 2003, it was reported that chloroquine was a potent inhibitor of SARS coronavirus, plus a few other human coronaviruses. So it's no wonder that when COVID-19 hit, they reached for the same exact drug. But this time, there seemed to be a lot of debate over its use. The debate was really, why is there any debate? When they've been using this drug since 1983, there's been plenty of trials and studies done on its effects, and they know that it's safe. But Fauci, the AMA, the FDA, all helped in the hindrance of its use. Now, even though they did give recommendations and claimed it was up to the doctors, the seriousness of the recommendation did make pharmacists and doctors halt prescribing its use in fear of somehow committing malpractice. Now, in my personal opinion, it seems like up to this point, everything Judy, the doctors, and nurses are saying are adding up. You want people sick, and you need more people infected. So you put a stop to the therapeutics that probably actually do work. You send people home without actually being tested, causing more spread of the disease if they do in fact have it. You're causing fear through the misleading of the numbers. And it's because of the nice little $39,000 incentive for any Medicare patients that go on a ventilator that you push them onto ventilators. That increase their chances of dying. All so you can push a vaccine when it becomes available. All in the name of, we can't reach herd immunity. There's too many people dying. The hospitals are overworked, and social distancing isn't halting the spread. Did I miss anything?
Virus.
That was a really weird survey. It literally asked doctors, what do you think is the front runner for treating COVID-19? And doctors voted because, they estimated which medicine they thought was going to be best. And they said hydroxychloroquine. And it doesn't mean that means it works. You need randomized controlled studies to make that happen. However, let me not get ahead of myself here. We are using hydroxychloroquine in our hospitals. We are giving it to patients. Those who are admitted, those who are not doing well with COVID-19, who are on ventilators, life support, cannot wait for randomized controlled studies. The FDA said in this situation, we can use an EUA, which is an emergency use authorization, to prescribe hydroxychloroquine for our patients. And honestly, our results thus far don't look great, because patients are still dying taking hydroxychloroquine. And the reason why the AMA stepped in and said, hey, doctors, stop prescribing this, was because the day after President Trump announced that he thought this could be a potential game changer, again, someone that's not a medical expert giving their opinion, the doses prescribed of it skyrocketed, and then there became not enough of the medication for people who needed it for its legitimate FDA-approved uses, like malaria, rheumatoid arthritis, other autoimmune conditions. What this doctor is talking about is something called the hygienic theory. And this hygienic theory is actually the exact opposite of what this doctor is saying. When you overly protect yourself, you boil your children's water, you don't allow them to play in the dirt, you're constantly disinfecting everything and anything that you touch, you're not exposed enough to viruses and bacteria, so your immune system actually goes up, not drops. And it actually goes up to the point where it starts overreacting to non-threats. And as a result, we've seen increases in autoimmune conditions, in allergies, because we don't have those bacteria and viruses that we need to be exposed to. So he's right, but there's a misunderstanding there. It actually increases your immune system or overboosts your immune system.
Millions of people are worried about catching cold, and with good reason. As we all know, the swine flu is infecting people around the world.
We should be smart, wash our hands, and stay home if we don't feel well. But we shouldn't be paranoid, because it turns out most of the bugs on us are actually on our side.
You might remember War of the Worlds, in which germs came to the rescue. When humans couldn't save themselves, it was germs who killed the alien invaders. And in some ways, that's not too far off.
For starters, they help us eat. Without all the bacteria in our guts, we wouldn't be able to digest the nutrients in a lot of our favorite foods.
They boost our immune system. All these foreign bodies living inside of our bodies, they balance out. The good ones battle with the bad ones, keeping the microbes that might harm us in check.
And it's a good thing most bugs are good, because there are 100 trillion, that's trillion with a T, microbial cells in our bodies, outnumbering human cells 10 to 1.
So there's more of them in you than there is you in you. Courtney Humphries is a science writer. She's written for Harvard Medical School. She says that this has scientists thinking of the human body as a kind of super organism.
When you're talking about whether we're healthy or not, you know, it's not just our bodies as separate individual things and then the bacteria. It's that we're functioning together as an organism.
Now, dirt is our friend. There's even something you could call a dirt movement. Doctors know kids exposed to common germs develop healthier immune systems.
That's the dirty little secret of the booming hand sanitizer business. I'm just saying, good thing the aliens in War of the Worlds didn't have hand sanitizer.
We don't yet know what the swine flu will do, but those trillions of other microbes in your body, the ones that won't kill you, they make you stronger.
The idea that we are now a few days away from a new administration, given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while, I've had the opportunity of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, is that there is no question that there will be a surprise outbreak. The thing we're extraordinarily confident about is that we are going to see this in the next few years. Thank you.